Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio with Tracey Kennedy, and today is Tuesday, February 2nd. And apparently I'm going to need to ask for donations because I need some money to pay some freaking attention. Okay, so we have some massive events. Try to come soft on them first because everything is physical and everything is not physical. And there's the center in between being neither of those things. So do you feel restless? Because our planet certainly does. Are you making some major changes in your life right now? Have you suddenly physically changed? For good or bad, what you would think of as good or bad. Know that these things are neither, though. If you're not feeling well, it's because you need to be paying attention. Hopefully you don't need to borrow money to do that. It's, the play of the English language again. People that I've been talking to are either crushingly ill right now. As a matter of fact, I only know 2 people who are not sick right now. I know that's really weird, and I mean young people too. People in their prime time, in their 20s, that should be out conquering the freaking world right now. Aren't. Some are, of course. We have our athletes. We have our people that we look up to. We always have our heroes, do we not? I guess I don't know any. It's just me. And that doesn't mean that people are not strong. When we look at the methane gas releases on this planet, which I will go into, when we talk about the problems in Flint and know that there's 6 other cities in the United States that have way worse water. Almost every reservation in United States, way worse water. Canada, all the northern reserves have been on water restriction for 25 years at least. Not because they don't have water, it's because the water is pucked the heck up. Now, we have talked about Dr. Emoto. This isn't fantasy here. This is science. This is science as deep dish science as we get. Water is conscious. Water communicates. If one water system is messed up, would not be all water systems know that? Is that not true? And look at our bodies. If you're super duper healthy, your body is approximately somewhere between 82 and 90% water. So basically we're cucumbers with anxiety. The anxiety may be caused because we're hearing the other water. So you're finding that people that you generally are never able to link with all of a sudden seem to be coming around? Because this is all a phenomenon of planetary lineups. Like the one that began January 23rd and will continue until the 7th of February. It's important for all of us to remember that we are the cosmos, and the cosmos is within us. I put up something on traceelementsradio.com to show you the temple of God. planetary alignments, how this is all body systems. And all the buildings are just a copy of what we have internally. So everything going on is linked up physically, psychologically. What's happening out there is happening in here. I'm pointing to the top of my head. So you're not remote viewing me right now. Okay, so planetary lineups such as these normally do affect our consciousness, and things are going on around us through resonation. So if something strange or abnormal is going on, it's important to reflect upon what is happening in the stars, as it may give you an answer, the answer needed to solve an otherwise puzzling synchronicity, coincidence, if you like. Keep in mind that the major planetary systems connect to your chakras, or your organs, if you like. So you can have an array of physical and emotional symptoms in times like this, when organs are all lined up with each other. You may experience things that are related to the lineup. One, and this may have scared the crap out of you, you suddenly can't digest food. It's not that you don't like it. It's not that you don't want it. It's that suddenly your body is changed. Drink lots of water. Have lots of tea. Have warm things. If you like warm things, have warm things. If you like cold things, have cold things. Water. For how long? Until you feel better. That's what fasting does. The timeline is within you, although you will feel some powerful things for the next couple days, especially till the 7th of February, and hopefully we will not be so pissed off. Well, that's just me. I'm really pissed off. Not like at anyone in specific. Just general pissed offness. Is that pissed offnia? I'm experiencing pissed offnia. So bad. So, moving. I call this a constellational change. When our planets move into a new house or a new position, sometimes we do too. And this affects our living arrangements, our jobs, etc. You may want to go somewhere. Feel a strong urge to move, change locations, buy locations, get out of here. It's not exactly feeling like fleeing, but kind of is. Your body knows when you have to move. Everything around you knows when you have to move. There are going to be some heavy predictions because of some of the things that have just taken place in the last 24 hours, like massive global tectonic plate movement. We're not at the point of the running and screaming, but I'm feeling a big runny, screamy thing approaching. That may just mean that I need to clean out my system. We'll talk about that too. It won't just be screaming news today. Next, relationship situations. So when Venus is lining up, she often brings ex-lovers or a questioning nature to the status of your current relationship. I almost said something completely inappropriate. Do you see? Do you see how I'm not saying it? I'm probably going to say it. But, okay, so sex drive also has a tendency to be increasing. So be on guard for being guided by your passion versus common sense. Don't go to the bar and pick up the first thing that looks hot, because you've probably been drinking, and tomorrow you're going to go, how in the heck did that look hot? Or go to the bar and do that, or whatever you do, like, go to the gym. I don't know what people do now. How do you even meet each other? Go online and talk. Try that. Even if your relationship is with yourself, you may be having problems in that relationship. See, wasn't that a nicer way to say what I was going to say? Read my mind. You know what I was going to say. Also at this point, and I think many of us are experiencing this, informational overload. When Mercury is resonating due to the energies of other lineups, this often brings a flood of new information, which accompanies sometimes antsy feeling about your life, your spiritual stance, even a feeling of information overload, too much information that would be much safer if you didn't know. So be sure not to get fed up with the new information. Relax. Store it away for later, when the information highway is more clear. It is not right now. And you know it. Challenges. Sometimes conflict brings resolution, with Saturn and Mars squaring off, looking at each other. That is a powerful male battle. God of War. Saturn, Sun. They have issues with each other. Strong, powerful issues. You know how men can be with each other on the bad side. And on the good side, this is what we're seeing right now. The good part, the bad part. Both. So, there is sure to be some type of quarrel that may be neutralized. So don't let emotional waves get the best of you. When you're about to freak the heck out, take a deep breath. Get up. Go for a walk. Come back and finish that conversation when you are not angry. So be mindful of the time we are in, and be the one who knows how to detect when a situation occurring is more of a planetary trigger issue versus an actual, or an issue with an actual person or an actual situation. You are feeling things that most likely have nothing to do with the people you're talking to. Keep that in the back of your head, because you need to start being a cosmos. We need to start being a cosmos. This requires that we learn to regulate all of these energetic forces. And since the moon will be hanging out also in this lineup, it's important to ground properly. This can be done by ensuring that you have a healthy mineral intake during these times and in the future. Salt, big time important. Shilajit seems to do the trick in giving the body enough minerals to ground, to be who you are, to stay in your stance. All of that current that's going to be running through us all, the planet, the cosmos, your body. So otherwise, taking your shoes off, having a walk with the mother, is a sure remedy in making sure that you stay firm during these times of energetic connection, because you will be pulled deeply. And lastly, there's nothing that is truly bad or good about lineups. Everything is an opportunity that presents a time to connect more with yourself and what is being presented. Just keep you balancing. Keep your balancing rod on the deck. Stay firm, because things are about to get creepy. Although I'm feeling some deep dish creepiness, this alignment has kicked my bottom. You guys have heard me complain about it for last month. No, this hard time with it. Really hard time with it. Because in the future is now, there will be absolutely no escape from robotic observation. Proof, if proof is still needed, comes in the form of Loon Copter. LOONCOPTER. A new drone, because, we don't have enough drones right now. Developed by Oakland University's Embedded Systems Research Laboratory, that can not only fly, but also land on and navigate under the water surface. This project has been around for quite some time. This latest prototype is way more polished, and is semi-finalist in the 2016 Drones for Good competition. That's a friggin' competition. I did not know that until recently. At a glance, the Loon Copter looks much more like a conventional quadcopter, with a much taller kind of barrel-like body. No, I didn't have time for the pictures today. I was running a little late. I can't move as fast, physically, mentally, emotionally right now. So the drone can land and float on water, much like other craft. But its party trick is the ability to fill its buoyancy chamber, causing it to safely sink a few meters beneath the surface. The clever design causes it to tilt at a 90 degree in the water, so that its propellers act like outboard motors. But I'm sure you can find lots of links about it. Loon Copter. So it lets it navigate, not very deep, the blue, like other subaquatic robots. When water is released, the loon floats back to the surface, at which point it can take to the skies again. It's kind of clever, if not kind of diabolical. Now, of course, the official line is that this multi-talented drone can help in a huggy, I love you sort of way, with search and rescue operations or underwater engineering inspections. But even that has a few challenges right now. Currently transmitting live video back to a console above ground, they say is impossible, so video has to be recorded for playback later. Future visions of the Loon Copter will have acoustic modems, repeater buoys, to allow for live streaming and avoid the need for a tether. They will be autonomous and broadcasting, much like, oh look, our brothers and sisters in the water already who do that. I think we have the dumbest scientists in the world. Ever in world history. Now, it could just make it a little bigger. They could. So they'd have the ultimate adventure vehicle if they wanted to have something that was fun and not, well, they can look at you underwater now, so there's no escape. And I hate to look at everything like that, but we've met these people. Oh, and I wanted to tell you, because I had missed this before the new year. Dr. Delbert Blair dies to the physical, but of course lives on. And great men and women never actually die. They continue to live in the consciousness of thousands, if not millions, that have an effect. He passed January 31st, 2016 at 8:43 a.m. to catch the grand alignment as it was taking place. So let us press forth even stronger for what Dr. Blair believed in was total harmony, master knowledge, consciousness, wellness of the mind, body, and soul. He will not be forgotten. Metaphysician, motivational speaker, expert on terrestrial and extraterrestrial matters alike. He was the founder of the Meta Center in Chicago, dedicated his life to waking people up. I personally was inspired by him. So I'd like to say that he will never fade. And I will never fade because of him. He awoke so many to their own personal greatness. And I'll make sure there's more interviews up with him, because people like this are more important than ever to listen to right now. There are no longer any excuses. Even if it's time to rest, and that is very, very important. It's cold, or at least cool, depending on where you live, in the north right now. Leaves on the ground, birds are flitting around, feeding on the last bugs, I guess. Getting fat, just in case it ever really gets deep dish winter. Nature knows how to work with the changing seasons. Nature knows exactly what to do at certain times of the year. Trees don't sit around looking at the next tree and worrying about how that tree's leaves have changed. Animals respond to the changing of the climate, even though this climate is nowhere near what it's been before. Sadly, humanity, our brothers and sisters, this family, rarely does that now. But just the idea and the sense of hibernation, if only for a few hours, if that's all you can do, can feel like you've been sleeping all winter, if you get it right. And sometimes that's exactly what you need in this time of darkness. Because it's important to honor these feelings, because you need to survive this. So how do you balance this need in this crazy world? When we're talking to each other, and I thank you, a lot of you are following me on Facebook and listening to my shows, which is awesome, and going to the page to see what I've posted for the day. I don't especially like Facebook. It really seems to be encouraging AST, so attention short-termism. But I have found a relatively, or at least a way recently of bridging that, this short-termism. Been exploring designs mixed with little snippets of philosophy, which I post as I'm sitting around. Literally, I just sit down, pause a second or two, write what comes to my mind straight from the source. This last little while has been pretty challenging. Suddenly cold, suddenly warmer, strange weather. And it really, I think it's the darkness more than anything, the dimness. It's not just dark, it's dim. It makes me feel slow. In earlier years, I guess like most people, I'd have overridden it, gotten on the job, made myself do things. Now, the trouble with ignoring such feelings is it starts building internal stress, which disconnects you, leads to unhealth, possibly, eventually, even a physical breakdown or emotional one. So it's important not to ignore these feelings. Even though, like many of you, I have a busy schedule, things that I want to do anyway. So how do you balance hibernation and the need for that in this crazy world? I didn't know it was possible. I didn't. I was too busy. And then, my body knocked me down. That's what your body will do. If you don't listen, it will knock you down. And you will nurture yourself whether you want to or not. All of the things that it took to put your body together, the minerals, the elements, the organs, all of these things, the salts, all of these things that come from the ocean, are stronger than you. They are. I know we've been told to really look at our minds like it's some enchanted forest that is in control of all the world, but it is not. The things that make you up, even the things living on your body and in your body, you're just full of all kinds of, we are basically a multiverse within our own bodies. It seems pretty obvious to me that's what we're supposed to be. We're already dealing with billions, trillions perhaps, in our own selves. We are not alone. And it's not because of our schizophrenia. So I woke up and I've decided to have chocolate for breakfast. It's coffee, kind of weak coffee, but a time to really slow down, cuddle up. Because I've traveled far enough on this journey. When a feeling comes up like this, it needs to express itself, or you will shut down. In this world of fear, we worry about what's true and what isn't. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about just the conspiracies that are out there. Because, like many of you, I'm a little sick and bored to death of that label that's pasted kind of flippantly by anyone seriously challenging the status quo. There was a time this CIA conspiracy terrorist tag or theorist tag created to fend off questions like JFK murder, marginalized, things of that nature. Used for specific targets, but it's used so widely now, so crudely. It's time we just get rid of it. The in the news. Vancouver, BC. In an interview from inside the behavioral mental unit of the St. Cloud Hospital, a reporter for Truth Frequency Radio was able to document his ordeal because he was committed by his family for having conspiracy theories. This is happening more and more. Kind of like who is calling who what. Because we are in a world based on fear of fictional and created enemies, population dividing ruses, control mechanisms on top of control mechanisms of every deceptive sort. How the heck are they going in any place? Fear, fiction. When we talk about who did what, because we're going to go into the whodunits today. We blame very rich people. I understand why we do that. I do. But when you say, let's pick somebody. The Rothschilds did this. Because we're going to talk about Zeta and a bunch of things, but specifically Zeta. And I have seen this regurgitated over and over. It's the Rothschilds. It's the Rockefellers. But is it really? Let's look at these things honestly. Do you see many Rockefellers, Rothschilds, as scientists, as doctors, as engineers, as mechanics, as bus drivers, as flying planes, building the planes, studying the insects? Do you see that much? I don't see that much. I just don't, guys. So when we say they did this, all they did is pay for it. We, not monsters. We did this. People did this. People. So projecting this new Zika virus, this spread, and using biowarfare as a countermeasure, realize that they have made their move. Why? Why now? This Zika, I call it Zika. People are sending me the Zetas, they're going to help us. Listen, if the aliens were going to help you, they'd have taken you 4 years ago when Fukushima started. They're not coming. It's not going to happen. It's too late to save you. It is. It's too late. The X-Files is not going to give you an answer. They're not going to tell us any truth. It is for entertainment. If you want to see truth in a show, and I realize it's campy, so I'm sure people wouldn't watch it. The agenda, the true agenda of what's going on. There's this UK television show, just went on 2 seasons. It's called Utopia. We're living it right the heck now. We've talked before about black swans, events so dramatic and surprising that it looks like a conspiracy theory. And if you've been paying attention to the news over the past several weeks, you've noticed amongst the political rabble and the internal exchanges and the ejaculatory self-indulgence of men with guns. Yeah, Rothschilds don't do much of that. People pick up guns and go to the wars to kill other people. So I'm not blaming the rich anymore. People like you and me who need to pay, of course, for their kids, their families, their loved ones. They're not sheeple. They're regular people like you and I. Period. They're no better, they're no worse, and the rich are the same. Now this peculiar, this named viral infection is emerging and spreading rapidly across the globe. In early October, scientists at the University of Wisconsin in Columbia ran the first assays confirming the presence of this virus, this transmission in South America. Recently published studies, researchers documented the disease trajectory that started with 9 positive patients and is now spread to more than 13,000 infected individuals in Colombia alone. Colombia is now only second to Brazil. It's second to Brazil in the number of known Zika infections. Findings of this study were published online in Emerging Infectious Diseases through an article named about the same. Detection of It's funny because the word looks like Cthulhu-ness. The Cthulhu-ness is Zika transmission. Interesting. Auto-Cthulhu-ness. That's an interesting word. I told you Cthulhu was coming. So anyway, it's transmitted to humans through mosquitoes. Typically causes illness that is often indistinguishable from other viruses. Symptoms of fever, a rash, joint pain, and no, I do not have this thing. Chances are pretty slim that I have this thing, although I have been fighting fevers. I'll let you know. If I suddenly go full Cthulhu-ness, I'll have a post for you for sure and show you my tentacles. So officials estimate that 4 out of 5 who contact the virus don't get sick. The virus is rarely fatal. However, a recent alarming find has uncovered pregnant women in Brazil with giving birth to babies with incredible birth defects, small heads, underdeveloped brains, a condition that's pretty scary to look at. Do you think it's possible for a virus to be covering up something else that is going on in this planet. They've come out and said if you're pregnant or planning on being pregnant, cancel your vacation. Don't go to Brazil. There are now 20 countries that have known transmissions of this, like Brazil and Ecuador and places in the Caribbean. United States has it. It's really being focused on the West Coast. Does this mean the virus is real? There's a patent for it, which we will go into. It has interesting biosignatures, which we will talk about. But it seems to be really centered on the West Coast. The West Coast, which is having an incredible amount of problems right now. The Ring of Fire that is sneakingly active. They'd rather you worry about your sovereignty than the fact that the water is contaminated, that we're running out of arable soil, that our soil is almost dead on this planet, that the genetically modified organisms that we are eating are being made because the planet no longer produces food, not in the quantities we need for the 7.3 billion people that are here, which only they have done everything they possibly can to sterilize us. It's working for the most part in some places. You can't sterilize the Chinese. So what they've tried to do is let them only have boys. You can't sterilize the Indians from India. Again, the only have boys thing. So hoping they will make them all homosexual, possibly. So they won't want to. But unfortunately, these men are, you can't do that to our new boyfriends. Forcing men not to have women never works out well. Look at Greece, look at Rome. They burnt themselves out with a couple years of world domination. Of course, the scale of which we are still living in. What do we learn from these? Certain cultures do well. They always have slaves. They always fight with viruses. The viruses and illnesses, this is a very old kill tactic. This is scorched earth. This is bring poison blankets. This is something that they've done for a very long time. People with pox, rubbing blankets on them, giving them, putting that in the water supply. Which is why I think there is something deeper and darker going on. Again, watch Utopia and tell me that is not a possibility. If you knew that the planet would not have enough resources to be sustainable, if you knew there was a devastation coming, and you knew for a fact that you couldn't save everyone. There was a new inoculation that they gave to old people in the United States. Older people. It killed 400 people. Small scale. But we're talking about how things are done. Researchers with the Eliminate Dengue, an international group with efforts to control the spread of dengue virus specifically, found that They infect mosquitoes with bacteria in the lab. It prevents them from transmitting yellow fever. A couple other things. They've admitted doing field experiments to see if they'd be able to replace existing wild populations of mosquitoes with new infected ones. Does it block transmission? They said they were going to start looking on how it could be used for the Zika virus control in South America. They don't know enough. They don't know enough about viral transmission to be doing things of this kind. We could look at it like they do know, and they're trying to thin us out. And I don't want to go all New World Order-y on this. But there's absolutely no way to save enough of us right now. And I know how horrible that sounds. I do. I really do. A group of scientists. Now this is true. This just happened. Has called for the death of humanity. Absolutely. Our death. They've called for our death. Because we're having such a hard time. Again, 15,000 children, refugees, if you will, have just vanished after arrival in Europe. I'm seeing a pattern here. Somebody else has to be seeing it. Now, they may have fallen into the hands of organized trafficking gangs. EU's Criminal Intelligence Agency says they are admitting this, that these children have just gone missing. Europol staff. Well, the Chief of Staff, Brian Donald, warned in a Saturday interview with a UK-based daily The Observer that a sophisticated pan-European criminal infrastructure targeting refugees, adding that at least 5,000 of the missing children had disappeared in Italy alone. 1,000 more unaccounted for in Sweden alone. He says it's not unresponsible to say that we're looking for at least 10,000, probably way more, children. Not all of them will be criminally exploited. Some might have been passed on to family members. They just don't know where the children are, what they are doing, who they are with. They are just gone. He said minors went missing after registering with state authorities, so they made it to the ground, registered. The discovery came to light after the first attempt by European law enforcement agencies to keep track of one of the most disturbing aspects of the continent's refugee crisis. Whether they are registered or not, we're talking about 270,000 children. Not all of those are unaccompanied, but we also have evidence of a large proportion that is unaccompanied. It suggests that the figures might prove to be conservative at this point. The actual number much higher.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Trace Elements Radio. So, here we are, with the cull happening right in front of our face. Another strange event. We talked about the expedition going to the center of the Earth. Have you seen the movie Core? Well, there's a bunch like that. They went through the Indian Ocean. They attempted to reach the Earth's mantle and missed. So I look at these events and think, so you have struck at the heart of the Earth, the planet, and missed. I'm a little bit thinking, nah. A little bit, because we are watching a cull going on. Numbers, they're not telling us how many. Now, while Europol has 900 strong force of intelligence analysts, police liaison officers, believes 27% of the nearly 1 million asylum seekers that arrived last year were minors. According to the British Daily, officials in southern Sweden, one city, revealed that some 1,000 unaccompanied refugee children who entered the port are gone. One city. Separate report released last Tuesday in Sweden further warned that many of the unaccompanied children are gone, and that there is very little information of what's happening after the disappearance. The number of refugee children in the UK that vanished after arriving as asylum seekers has doubled in the last 3 months. Are these gangs? We've talked a lot about the pedophilia going on. If there was just one event, I would say that's what it is. Pedophiles have found some new children, and they're just attacking them. And I'm sure there's some of that going on. Unless you know a population is infertile and are about to be devastated, like I think the west of Europe is about to be devastated. You know, the Navajo water supply, poison worse than Flint. We're hearing no one cares because they're native. I don't think that's it. Look at my page. The links of the worldwide water crisis. The soil depletion today. They're not being attacked because they're native. They're being attacked because we're at a place of no return. Everyone should have water, air, and food purifying system in your house now. If you listen to Cash, he's saying we have days. We're hearing more warnings of CERN. Again. Greatest threat to mankind. No. Man is and will always be the greatest threat to mankind. CERN is not a being. CERN is not an entity. CERN did not just miraculously appear. From the nuts and bolts to the programming to the trucks and the trains and all of the things that had to be put together to build this thing, elite didn't do that. We did that. No king did this. No president did this. We work for them. They would not exist without us. So 2 weeks ago, hardly anyone heard about this Zika virus. There's a reason that viruses are pushed Are they not? Either it's real, or it's to cover something else up, a bigger problem that they don't want you to panic about. Wait until the water and the food wars start. If we've learned anything from history, anything at all, people will always look to their families first. This is why people take jobs that are basically mass murder. It's not an accident. It's not surprising. We protect our own. Our own could be a country. It could be a town. It could be the household, the family, or it's your kids. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And people, look what's happening in Canada. Cauliflower, $8 in Ontario, where we get trucks coming up. But we don't have any winter here. This isn't winter. There's a friggin' dust of snow on the ground. It's not that. Yes, this virus. Of course, everyone's jumping around because they've figured out how to look up who made it. So, if there's a new virus, the first thing you should do is go and look who did the patent. Yes? Yeah, that's it. But it doesn't matter. These people did not make the virus. People like us made the virus. That's it. People like us made the virus, shipped it out. You can't blame your president for this. You can't blame, as much as I know people would really like to, Rothschilds for this. The World Health Organization announced it will convene an emergency committee under international health regulations. Well, yesterday. It was the first yesterday, right? Talking about Zika. Its explosive spread through the Americas. It's already up here, guys. It's not coming. It's here already. Early October, I think the 5th. Anyway. A causal link between the Zika virus infection, birth malformations, neurological syndromes already suspected. Who is deeply concerned, as they always are, the spread of this with birth malformations, neurological syndromes, potential for further international spread, given the whole geographic distribution of friggin' mosquitoes. As much as they've tried to kill the mosquitoes, one of the reasons why they say they're spraying toxins on us to kill the mosquitoes. You kill mosquitoes, the birds have nothing to eat, the birds die. We don't know what killing mosquitoes would do to us in the scheme of things. But we have to realize that the Zika outbreak, the epicenter, is exactly where they released the GMO mosquitoes in 2015. We talked about this. The GMO mosquitoes that have been released worldwide. Last year. It exploded, they say out of nowhere. It was discovered 1947. Not exactly. It was made 1947. Cases only sporadically, of course, around Africa, Southern Asia. 2007 first reported in the Pacific. 2013 smattering of small outbreaks. Individual cases. Africa, Western Pacific, also began showing up in the Americas. It showed up specifically in places with a lot of resources. Fertile land. Food sources. Specifically, May 2015, Brazil reported its first case. The situation has changed dramatically because Brazil is still fertile. Even though there's a huge amount of poverty there, the land is very rich. So, 4,000 babies with a birth defect this year. Examining this expanding potential, it's necessary to leave no stone unturned. In that vein, they said it was another significant development. Oxitec unveiled its large-scale genetically modified mosquito farm, Brazil, July 2012. Goal of reducing the incidence of dengue fever. Dengue fever spread through mosquitoes. These mosquitoes spread the Zika virus. But they thought it was fine because they can only go 400 meters. Who stated that it might inadvertently be transmitted to humans or by humans from one place to another? July, of course, 2015, shortly after these mosquitoes were released. Brazil. Oxitec proudly announced they had successfully controlled one type of mosquito that spreads this dengue fever. A dengue fever that did kill 300 last year, planet-wide. Common cold kills thousands. It's nothing. So they thought it was an astounding success. Their words. Now, nature, as has been pointed out repeatedly, finds a way. In an effort to control dengue, Zika and other viruses have backfired dramatically. They don't know what they're doing. Now we could say that yes, they're smart enough to actually have released the apocalypse virus on their own. I'm telling you, they are not that smart. They did probably try. But this planet has their ideas. You kill one thing, you kill one people, every being in this biome, connected, like it or not, family, like it or not, we suffer. Now this particular strain of GMO mosquitoes, Ox 513, 513A, period, little pyramid sign there, genetically altered so that a vast majority of their offspring will die, they said, before they mature, so that they will not procreate, basically. September 2010. It had a known survival rate of 3 to 4%. They decided to look at it a little closer before the release of these insects. there are many scientists that were concerned, echoing concern. Actually, most of them have fallen down elevator shafts onto some bullets or relatively suspicious deaths. But anyway, concerned at the time and since, they and their findings ignored. They should not have been. These mosquitoes, the work to control wild, potentially disease-carrying populations in a very specific manner. The male of these mosquitoes is supposed to be released into the wild. They mate with unaltered female counterparts, as one would expect. Once the offspring are produced, the modified scientific facet is supposed to kick in. Kill the larvae before it reaches breeding age. There's a problem already. Now, according to an unclassified document from the Trade and Agriculture Directorate Committee for Agriculture, dated February 2015, Brazil is the third largest in the global antimicrobial consumption in food animal production. Meaning, Brazil is the third in the world for its tetracycline use in food animals. The study said it's estimated that approximately 75% of antibiotics are not absorbed by animals, are excreted in waste. One of the antibiotics specifically named in that report for its environmental persistence is tetracycline. In fact, as a confidential internal document from Oxitec divulged 2012, the survival rate looks like it's a little bit higher than 15%. Even in the presence of very, very low levels of tetracycline. Even small amounts of tetracycline can repress the engineered brevity. 15% survival rate was also described by these people after a lot of testing. Comparing experimental design, it was found that researchers had used a cat food to feed the larvae. This cat food contained chicken. It is known that tetracycline is routinely used to prevent infection in chicken, especially in cheap, mass-produced chicken used for animal food. The chicken is heat-treated before it's used. This does not remove tetracycline. This meant a small amount of tetracycline was added from the food to the larvae, representing designed lethal system. Even absent of this tetracycline, there would be a subpopulation of genetically modified mosquitoes who would find a way to develop and thrive. The theory is the capability of surviving and flourishing despite any means known will always happen. So the release of pure GM mosquitoes, there will always be some that have the gene intact. This works with bugs. It works with people. There will always be a breeding pair. You can't wipe out people completely. You can't. Or disease. Or plant. Now the effectiveness the system also depends on genetically designed late on the onset of death. They want to shorten their lifespan, basically. So if the time of onset, when the gene kicks in, is altered due to an environmental condition, like it might be a little warmer one year or a little wetter, survival rate becomes a much bigger problem. They know they're messing with stuff that they can't predict. So with conditions that are associated with this year's El Nino, the weather patterns are completely unprecedented. But El Nino does one thing specifically. It increases mosquito populations. So, Obama called for a massive research effort to develop a vaccine. The vaccine's being worked on for the Zika virus, as one does not exist currently. Brazil has now called in 200,000 soldiers to somehow help combat the virus's spread. But these mosquitoes have been spotted now in the UK. Perhaps the most ironic, or not, was offered January 19th, MIT Technology Review. An outbreak in the Western Hemisphere could give countries, including the United States, new reasons to try wiping out mosquitoes with genetic engineering. Yesterday, Brazil said it would expand the use of genetically modified mosquitoes. The GM mosquitoes created by Oxitec, a British company, and there's Britain who suddenly has these mosquitoes, was purchased by Intrazone, a synthetic biology company based in Maryland. The company said that it has released bugs in parts of Brazil, the Cayman Islands, to battle dengue fever. That was surprisingly never an issue. Cayman Islands are relatively well off, and I realize it's mostly rich people that go there, but you gotta be rich to be there. They released these things and set them forth. I don't know how many ways to say what goes around comes around, but it always happens. If this is the apocalypse virus that we've talked about before, of children, the children are being attacked, it's been pointed out that this has already spread. They're being strangely quiet. But a third case of this virus has been absolutely confirmed in the Big Apple. They're saying 4 million people across the Americas could be infected with the Zika virus in the next several months. The first report said years. Now they're saying months, because the third case of this. And it's really strange who this non-thinking regular mosquito is attacking. For some reason, it likes pregnant women. She says to herself. So, a pregnant woman contracted this mosquito, this new mosquito-borne infection, they said, while traveling overseas. Officials, after revealing the new case last Thursday, sought to calm fears, emphasizing that there is no danger. Please stay seated. Feel free to suck on your thumbs and rock back and forth. Okay, they didn't say that part. That was me. So, the sickened New Yorkers have all returned from countries in the Caribbean, Latin America, and they are struggling to contend with this escalating viral outbreak. The mosquitoes, suspected of carrying the disease, are not found in New York. A total of 6 people in New York State have contracted the virus overseas, 3 from Nassau, Orange, and Monroe counties. The disease, which is believed to cause newborns to have usually small heads, abnormal brain development, pose a risk to pregnant women. Centers for Disease Control are advising pregnant women to avoid travel to over a dozen destinations: Caribbean, Central America, South America. Wow. Most people who contract the disease don't need hospitalization, but they carry the disease. It becomes part of your DNA. They're not coming out and saying you become contagious. Now, the new city tally. It was released. The international health officials, again, warning up to millions. The arrival of this virus, in some cases, has been associated with a steep increase in the birth of babies that die quickly. Interesting enough, a Texas scientist advocates killing 9/10 of the world population in an airborne Ebola-like virus. An award-winning scientist was given a standing ovation after he advocated the extermination of 90% of world's population. In the University of Texas, evolutionary ecologist was addressing the 109th meeting of the Texas Academy of Science at Lemire University. March, I guess. Now present at this, popular science writers and editors, other scientists, of course. Something curious occurred in a minute before this man started speaking. An official at the academy approached a video camera operator at the front of the auditorium, engaged him in animated conversation. The camera operator did not look pleased as he pointed the lens of the camera to the ceiling and walked away. This incident came to mind a few minutes later when this professor began his speech, explaining that the general public is not ready to hear what he had to tell us because of the many years of experience as a writer and editor. This strange introduction and the TV camera incident, I don't know. Luckily, someone wrote it down. His speech condemned people. The idea that the human race occupies a privileged position in nature. He exclaimed that we are no better than bacteria. I agree with him on this point. He argued that the sharp increase in human population since the onset of industrialization was destroying the planet. Again, I agree with him. He warned that the Earth will not survive its human population unless it is reduced to 1/10 of its present number. Look, I have pictures of how the Earth has changed. Even carbon notes. Not from, alternative media stuff. I mean, from the scientists who are actually working with this stuff. One of the biggest changes on this planet, other than what we're doing in the last 4 years, was what Genghis Khan did by killing 44 million people. I know, it's going to sound horrible. A lot of them farmers. A lot of them. Ground had a chance to go back. Leaving land to reseed itself, reclaim itself, changes everything. Look what's happened in Chernobyl. They have plants and animals that have not been there for 50 years. That's why I said, look at that TV show. The strange events and the strange viruses that are suddenly appearing as if planned. I don't know. I'm looking at it. I'm not saying that slaughter people off. But we're living in a world where people are being slaughtered for their body parts. It's happening. Uranium mining has been poisoning people for eons. We have such inadequate infrastructure and disaster insurance that we could really not afford a large-scale either epidemic, hurricane, tornado. Look at what's happened. But the scientists calling for death to humanity, because this is basically what they're saying. This scientist said AIDS took too long to kill off people. Again, another GMO. 100% it is. Scientists worldwide for a long time have been offering dramatic solutions. Basically, the remarks sound like they're depicting the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I am saying this is what's going on. War and famine. This is his words, are insufficient for solving the global overpopulation. Instead, disease is efficient and swift. At that point, this Pianka, his name is, displayed a slide showing rows of human skulls. AIDS took far too long to kill people off. He preferred the method of examining over 5 billion humans, exterminating us via an airborne Ebola. The Zika is Ebola-ish. There's several things that they used. Dengue fever, yes. And it looks Ebola-like too. Now, because it is highly lethal, kills its victim in days rather than years, because years wouldn't be kind, in his words. Did not mention that Ebola victims die a slow and torturous death, as the virus initiates a cascade of biological calamities. Basically, it liquefies the internal organs, which, if you're thinking of mass suicide, extermination, we would melt, less to clean up, liquefy the bones, go back into the earth. Now, after praising the Ebola virus for its efficiency, he paused, leaned over the lectern, looked at people and said, "We've got an airborne 90% mortality in humans virus, killing humans." Think about that. After his address, the audience burst into applause. It wasn't a smattering of polite clapping. Audience diplomatically reserved for poor, boring speakers. It was loud. It was vigorous. It was enthusiastic. During the question and answer session, this man praised Communist China's draconian one-child policy, suggested that the IQs are falling because of uncaring people. Well, partly true. Partly true. If children are running around unparented, now realize that most of it is because we're working too hard. But there are some facts going on here. Some real facts that 50% of the world's wildlife has gone in just 2 human generations. That the things that are happening right now on this planet are speeding up. We could say that there are always vaccine failures. This one-size-fits-all solution to everything. They do not fail if you know what they're made for. And what they're made for is to spread. You get a vaccine, you become a carrier. Plain and simple. You become a carrier of that thing. We're at a precipice, are we not? The methane gas releases alone are enough to change this planet so dramatically. It doesn't surprise me that UK scientists can now legally genetically modify human embryos. This is past. This is past. There are such sick things going on. The US Make Rape Legal Group plans a worldwide anti-women event in 43 countries, and countries are allowing this. Now, the spokesman for this US-based group, who advocates legal rape, has organized worldwide meetings. "43 different countries are accepting this a-hole." So I guess a lot of people would say, it's free speech. No, you don't have the right to say anything. So on a website advertising the Return of the Kings event, self-styled pickup artist, this guy, has encouraged this and his supporters to come out of the shadows and not have to hide behind a computer screen for fear of retaliation. The website promises 165 events, 43 countries, 8 p.m. local time, Saturday. This man has instructed his followers to go to a public location at each meeting area, identifying themselves by asking, "Do you know where I can find a pet shop?" From there, group members will be taken to secret meeting locations. Women and the LGBT community have been banned from attending the meetings. Now, this guy in his blog last year said rape should be legal on private property. By attempting to teach men not to rape, what we have actually done is to teach women not to care about being raped, not to protect themselves from easily preventable actions, not to take responsibility for their actions. I thought about this problem, and I am sure I have the solution: make rape legal, if done on private property. I propose that we make the violent taking of a woman not punishable by law. However, the meeting plans are already receiving opposition, but not cancellation. Sex without consent is rape. There are no excuses. If someone is drunk, if they are drugged, they cannot give consent. This is pretty much standard worldwide. We must all do what we can to prevent rape, sexual assaults against offering the necessary support, prevention. The creeps from the Return of the King are meeting in Sydney. I can't imagine men with masculinity so fragile. Luckily, I've not met these men, nor do I want to. Obviously. But this is the planet. This is where we live. This is our good home. As we're seeing Los Angeles. Los Angeles, my God. A catastrophic disaster is now taking place outside of Los Angeles, endangering millions of people. Officials have said they have entirely lost control of the entire gas field, meaning explosive methane gas is now leaking from many places. Workers at the scene of Porter Ranch gas field, also in Also Canyon, say some of the leaks are so loud that the hissing can be heard a half-mile away. Now here's a quote taken directly from a local attorney who was present at the Porter Ranch town hall meeting. The massive explosions are likely to take place once the methane comes into contact with the pilot light of a stove, hot water heater. This could set off rolling explosions a few hundred feet in the air, knocking down all the houses and the buildings nearby as it goes. Worse, toxic benzene is now confirmed to be coming out of the ground, entering the atmosphere in such large quantities that people can be killed merely by walking through it. If it is in the atmosphere, we have this weird thing called wind. You have to look at the atmosphere like the ocean. It has currents. If it happens in one place, it is happening worldwide. Now, of course, fatal levels are the ones nearer to the well, the gas field, closer to the ground. But benzene can be absorbed through the skin. Once sufficient amounts enter the body, there is no treatment. There's no cure. All you can do is die. Now, the leak, largest natural gas leak ever, happening right now in a wealthy suburb, Los Angeles. The leak from an old oil well being used to store natural gas under pressure. The latest natural gas storage facility, the largest one, I think, west of the Mississippi. I think so. Now, the pipe inside the well cracked, and and so much gas is gushing out. It's increased California's emissions by 25%. 10,000 local residents have been evacuated up to 5 miles away from the leak. It's not enough. Planes aren't allowed to fly overhead because they will blow up. The leak started in October. The company says probably around March they're going to do something. Maybe. Researchers. Now, driving a natural gas analyzer down the roads around the gas leak. This is what they're doing. From January 8th to the 13th. They created a video, a picture. The red shows where they drove. Now again, this is on traceelementsradio.com. Look, yesterday's stuff. So far, the early results, natural gas levels have elevated 2 to 67 times above the background level. Now myself, I'm not seeing how you can go from 2 to 67. Is it 2 or is it 67? Hello. Local residents are talking about nausea, headaches, nosebleeds. This is in a nice area. This is not racial prejudiced. This is not poor black people. It's not because they don't care about white people. It's also not because they don't care or they care less about natives. Or they care less about black people. They have put people in places that they realize there is nothing they can do. It's too late. It's too late. I'd like to say it in a different way, but I'm sorry. Too late is too late. They can't do anything. They're acting like they can't do anything. Now, researchers are saying that the Gulf of Alaska, the seaboard die-off, is the biggest they've ever recorded. At this point. 22,000 dead as of last Friday, within a month. The mass of dead seaboards that have washed up in Alaska in the past month, this is unprecedented, and I've been talking about this since Fukushima. Staggering die-offs of iconic Pacific seabirds. Crushing. They kind of look like flying penguins, a little bit. So we're in the midst of a die-off here that they have never seen. They say they can't explain it, but, there's so many different things going on right now. And let's be honest, it's not just Fukushima. The plates on this planet are moving. We've talked about before how European continent is being pushed up. Others are colliding with it. This is going to cause disaster. We have seen places in Europe specifically that you never hear of these kind of events. Earthquakes. You just don't hear about it, But you're hearing about it now. Catastrophic failure. And when we've talked about the caltrate maps on this planet, and I've shown you, sign of the times, there's not just one event here. This is a global event. It is devastating. Now, I wouldn't think that every virus going on is planned by the elites. Now, remember again, the elites, all they have is money. People like you and me are allowing this to happen. And there really are too many of us. You can't have 1 million people in one city and not expect this to make a difference. You can't. We cause devastation everywhere we go. And if people have a chance to help each other or fight and protect their families to give themselves a little bit more, the elite are no different than us. This is what we do. And if this continues, like here, for instance, I have my family, I have you guys. There is no friggin' way I'd be able to, there's no way that I would be able to afford food right now. Not on disability, but I can't say that I'm doing anything that could get me out of the system. I have to get better to do that. I do. We are having such bizarre events. Now this goes back last month. There are orbs falling out of the sky. I'll continue with this on Thursday. Please join me. Let's talk about what's happening to our planet and not the ridiculous stuff and, who's got the biggest gun. Bye for now.